Hi everybody, Mrs. Rainey here. Today we are going to learn how to turn a circle into a sphere. So hopefully everybody's watched the PowerPoint or the presentation on value, and we all know about light source, highlight, reflected light, and cast shadows. And two-dimensional versus three-dimensional, that should be reviewed from our Elements of Art unit. What we're going to do is we are going to take a two-dimensional circle and turn it into this sphere or a sphere that looks three-dimensional. All right. So ideally, what you will have at home is a blank piece of paper. Okay. Typically, we would use a compass to create a circle, but if you don't have a compass at home, you can use anything round or circular. I'm going to use this jar of glitter to trace my circle. Hopefully, we have some drawing pencils, like of varying hardness, like a 2B, which is a fairly soft lead, and then maybe even a 6B, which is also a soft lead. The darker or the softer the lead, the darker the mark. So a 6B or an 8B would be a great pencil for doing your cast shadow, your darkest of dark marks for your value. When we're talking about an HB or a 2H pencil, those are going to create a lighter mark. They're a little bit harder lead. If all you have at home is just a regular pencil, that's just fine too. I tell my kids all the time, you don't need fancy supplies to make good art, okay? So it's nice to have them, but you don't have to have them. So here I am tracing my circle. Anything round or circular will work. And what this is here is this is a two-dimensional shape. This is nothing but a circle, okay? Just a circle. We want this circle to look like a sphere. We want it to look three-dimensional, more like a ball or a sphere. So the way we do that is by adding value. The first thing I want you guys to know is that you need to determine where your light source is coming from. My light source is going to be coming from over here. Okay, so I'm just going to say light source. Okay, so when I know where the light source is coming from, that helps me determine where my highlighted area is going to be. So I'm just going to kind of draw really faintly this line here, and that's going to be my lightest of light area is going to go in this highlight. Okay. And then as my sphere, as the light kind of disappears, it's going to get a little bit darker here, and then it's going to get a lot darker in this middle area here, okay? And then it's going to have that little bit of reflected light that's going to come back right here, right? And then our light source is going here, which means that our shadow, our cast shadow, is going to follow that trajectory. It's a big word, right? Okay. So now that we have all of these things determined, it's time to go in and make a little bit darker mark. If you have just a couple of extra notes, an eraser is an awesome way for me that I love to build value or erase value out. So you can draw your dark marks and then you can go back with your eraser and you can create lighter areas. I don't recommend that all the time because we want to draw it light until we get it right. That means that we want to make lots of light marks and light hatching lines over and over and over rather than starting by pressing really hard and drawing super dark lines right away. I hope that makes sense. The next thing is I want you guys to know this is a blending stump, just a tortillon blending stump. This is a great tool to have handy. It helps blend and smooth and can kind of take away the rough edges because we don't ever want to see like super harsh lines when we're drawing because we want it to look like a smooth transition. It always looks more natural and more realistic if the transition is smooth rather than a harsh line. Okay, so if you don't have a blending stump or fancy pencils at home, you can just use a regular pencil. You can use your finger as a blending stump. I'm going to show you guys some techniques here, so hopefully you'll see that. So you can make it work with or without the fancy tools, okay? All right, so now The first thing that I've done, I've drawn my circle, I've established where my light source is coming from. I've kind of put a little faint line here. We know this is going to stay light, so I'm actually not going to make any marks in this area at all right now. And I'm going to gradually get darker and darker as I go back on my circle. And it's going to start to kind of come to life and look like a sphere. Okay, and then the darkest area is going to end up being right here in this area, kind of behind the sphere. Okay, and I don't want to outline, but I do want to know that this is going to be my darkest area. Okay, so I know that you can see there, I'm using my finger to help me blend. So when I'm doing this, I'm going to draw, I'm just going to use some hatching lines. I'm going to be really, really light on my hatching lines. You guys see how I'm going like that? It's actually going to be better to either use cross hatching or cross contour lines where we're kind of following the contour of our shape. Okay. So when we do that, it's a little more realistic looking to make this look like a sphere or a ball instead of a circle. Okay, so now as I get kind of darker down in here, I want to add a little bit of darkness. So I'm going to press a little harder, or I'm going to switch out and use a softer lead pencil. Remember, a 2B is going to be a little softer than an H or an HB. A 4B is going to be softer than a 2B. A 6B is going to be even softer than that. I've come in here and I've made this kind of area here. I'm just going to kind of block that out for my reflected light area. Okay. So again, following with the shape of my sphere. Okay. So you can use your hand if you've got your hand. Everybody's able to do that. Or you can come in with a blending stump. And again, you want to kind of have these soft lines. All right. You want softer edges, no harsh marks. Okay. And again, you want to follow the contour or the outline of your object. We want these harsh marks to go away. Okay. All right. So now with this being said, it still all kind of looks like one value in here. So we want to go through and make this a little bit darker. Okay. So I'm going to make it a little bit darker. I'm going to finish smoothing. And smoothing, a lot of art is just working and reworking different areas of your project that you're working on. So we'd like to draw it light until we get it right. I'm coming through here. I'm making some cross hatching marks, following the contour of the sphere. All right, because I want the cross hatching to look a little. It's going to look a little darker, so it's a darker value. Okay. All right. So the darkest area of my sphere is going to be right in here. Okay. This technique here where you're making little round movements, this is called scumbling. Scumbling is not a required vocabulary word, but it's a technique that I just love to use because I feel like it helps with the value. Now this area here where the reflected light is, I am going to fill that in, but I want to make sure that I'm still keeping it lighter, okay? I'm not making it too dark. All right. Okay, so it's starting to look more and more like a sphere, right? But we need to add that cast shadow, and then we need to add a little bit of darkness behind the sphere just to make it look grounded so it doesn't look like it's floating in air. Okay, so I'm going to come in here. Okay. using some cross hatching. I want the center part of this shadow to look the darkest and be the darkest in my whole area. So as you're practicing at home, just know that if you feel like, oh no, I kind of made a mistake and you want to erase out, here we go. You can use your eraser to kind of erase away, right? Those lines. And that can come in and help you create some more definition. All right. So keep that in mind. Okay, I still feel like this guy is kind of floating a little. So I'm going to add a little bit of tone here to make it look like it's more on a surface. Okay. And then up here, I feel like this is a harsh line, kind of, you probably can't see it as well through the document camera as I can. Okay, so, all right, and then I feel like, I'm going to come in here and just erase this kind of this harsh line right here. We still want it to look like a sphere. It doesn't look like a circle anymore, does it? Hopefully you guys are saying, no, Mrs. Rainey, it does not look like a circle anymore. It looks like a ball or a sphere now. Okay. So just play with it, work it, rework it, and no matter what, you can always go back and add things in or take things away and just keep reworking it until you get it just the way you want it. All right? Okay. I feel like these lines are too dark, so I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to kind of rework this area. All right, so now we've got our sphere, right? Hopefully everybody thinks it looks like a sphere or a ball instead of a circle. And we've got our light source. We have our highlight, which is the brightest area, right? And then we've got our cast shadow, which is the darkest of dark value that we have on our sphere. And then we have our reflected light. That's right in here, this area. And we're no longer looking at a circle, but now we are looking at a three-dimensional sphere.